Memories of my previous visit here lurked in the shadows, a musty smell under the coat of new paint.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present Max Payne, New York's finest, with the biggest mobster body count ever.
The turn of the century was an important one for gaming, with the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox pushing for more mature and arguably violent experiences over the family-friendly platformers that dominated the last 3 generations. Amongst the genre-defining hits that were Grand Theft Auto 3, Halo Combat Evolved, and others, Remedy Entertainment developed a game that felt way ahead of its time in the form of Max Payne. The unprecedented success of the game quickly called for a sequel, and Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne, was conceived shortly after. The game was released on October 14, 2003 for the PC, PS2, and Xbox. More than 18 years later, Max Payne 2 still stands tall as one of gaming's finest, with a dedicated fan following still clamoring for a remaster, a remake, or a sequel of any form.
NYPD!
Whoa, easy, officer, easy. Just cleaning the place. Come on, officer, it's all legit. I work for the Squeaky Cleaning Company.
Its legacy, the fandom, and the sheer creativity beautifully coalesce together to make Max Payne 2, simply put, one hell of a game. While Payne's story did round up fairly well by the end of the original, there was still no shortage of great stories to tell with the character. Max Payne 2 picks up shortly after the original, with protagonist Max Payne having taken up a job as a detective in the NYPD. To no one's surprise, he's still the jaded and cynical human being as he was in the original, just going through the motions while stalking himself with painkillers. Of course, life takes a dramatic turn for him, as a distress call at a warehouse leads him to an encounter with Mona Sachs, a former ally and future love interest who was presumed to be dead as seen in the original game. Remedy had proven its mettle with its storytelling in the original game, showcasing a noir drama with morally ambiguous characters and a layered narrative that was worth inspecting and investing in. That being said, there was some naivety to the whole affair, which is largely understandable given the fact that Max Payne was the studio's first game to feature a proper story. That issue was further exacerbated by the one-tone voice acting of the original, which most likely stemmed from the same naiveness.
She hovered over my shoulder, whispering warnings. I didn't want to listen. Mona was the suspect in Winterson's case. I didn't tell them I had seen her. I wanted to stall.
With the sequel, however, writer Sam Lake cranked all of his narrative devices to 11. The characters felt more alive and complex. The atmosphere felt richer and deeper, and a plot with layers that kept revealing themselves until the very end. Max Payne 2 is, in the truest way, the fall of Max Payne. The game does a great job depicting the character's dilapidated mental state. Payne's journey through the rabbit hole of bad decision-making, largely influenced by his growing love for Mona Sachs, holds an irrefutable charm to this day. There's a great deal of emotional heft to the whole affair, further exacerbated by a cast of morally ambiguous and at times double-crossing cast of supporting characters, such as Vinnie Gognitti, Valerie Winterson, and Alfred Woden, among a handful of others. The iconic comic book panels make a return, which are of markedly better quality, boasting better visuals and effects. Much like the original, Max mostly talks in one-liners and metaphors, but it's definitely an improvement over the original, largely thanks to a better performance by James McCaffrey.
When you're waking up, the world is a blur. What was clear in a dream suddenly makes no sense. No surreal rescues, no easy, magic way out. But you are awake.
Max Payne 2 also features a number of optional conversations, telephone recordings, and TV serials for eagle-eyed players to dig into. There's a reference to how a particular NPC's boyfriend keeps playing that Dick Justice video game, which, as fans of the franchise would know, was the original name for Max Payne. The TV shows Lords and Ladies and Address Unknown showcase parallels to Max's love life and the overarching narrative respectively. All of these optional bits and pieces have great writing, which incentivizes players to check every nook and cranny in search of them. Much like the leaps that Max Payne 2 takes from the original, there are similar improvements to the gameplay as well. Max controls much tighter than the original, with guns feeling a lot better, which can be attributed to the vastly improved accuracy. The movement is also much more responsive, with better animations. Players can now keep shooting once the bullet dodge is over while lying on the ground. The bullet time itself has received a significant overhaul, as players shoot down targets whilst in bullet time. Time keeps slowing down to a further extent. It's a neat mechanic that builds on the sort of rhythmic gameplay of the original. Another noteworthy improvement is the level design. The original Max Payne featured some great levels, but a consistent issue that marred the original was enemy placements. More often than not, enemies would hide in the unlikeliest of corners, which made getting through an encounter unscathed the first time around a needless hassle. Max Payne 2's levels are much more manageable in that aspect, and it feels supremely fun to mow down a squad of enemies while most of them haven't even registered the player's presence. Level variety has also seen a major improvement, with fan favorites such as Mona's Funhouse and the Construction Yard, among others, showing a stark contrast from the New York indoors that housed a majority of the game's levels. All of it creates an infectious pace to the game, which, when combined with bite-sized levels as well as the constantly shifting story, makes Max Payne 2 pretty hard to put down. A point worth mentioning is the game's length, which is quite short by modern standards. Completing the game along with a healthy dose of side content takes only about 6 hours, which leaves players wanting more. That being said, much of the game's runtime is utilized in meaningful ways, which, in my opinion, is a lot better than stretching the story just for the sake of it. Max Payne 2 looked gorgeous at the time of its release, although it's inarguable that it looks quite muddy by today's standards. However, its audio remains a highlight to this day, with the melancholic tunes plucking all the right strings at the right time. When all is said and done, Remedy pulls out the banger that is Late Goodbye by Poets of the Fall at the game's end credits, when all's said and done, and it's time to say goodbye. Max Payne 2's biggest qualities are improvements to the original, which can make it sound like a textbook sequel. However, the sheer artistry behind its sincere narrative, so effectively brought to life with complex and morally gray characters, makes the game an entirely different entity of its own. With the exception of Metal Gear Solid, I can't think of any other games that weaved such complex and layered narratives with the framework of an action game. Perhaps this is what most importantly makes Max Payne 2 one hell of a game, all these years later. That's all for now. If you enjoy what you saw, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, now is a great time to subscribe. We upload brand new videos every single day. After subscribing, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time, right here on GamingBolt.